this is Yana Smakula for SimonSaysTM.com, and thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to bring you another episode from my bi-monthly Yippee for Yana video series. In today's video, I'm showing you how to customize pattern paper with the help of stencils, inks, embossing powder, and glimmer paste. Patterned paper is something I rarely use simply because I love to create unique things, and with pattern paper, it's not easy unless you're using pattern paper from Concord and 9th. Here I have 3 new products from Concord and 9th that are designed to work together and enhance each other. There's a 6x6 patterned paper pad, a large stamp set, and a set of layering stencils. Patterned paper has 6 designs and they are double-sided. There are 4 of each design, so you get plenty to work with and practice on. On the front, you have a pattern that coordinates with the stencil, so if you lay the stencil on top, it matches perfectly. You don't have to look for a particular flower, it has all been thought through. And on the back, you have regular, simple pattern. And same with the other sheets and designs in this pack. They all match and coordinate. These sheets, for example, are almost identical, just the background stripes are different. And you also have one additional pattern on the back of the cover sheet, so nothing goes to waste. Everything can be used for a project. The stencil is a 2-step stencil. You have a solid flower layer and a detail layer. And there's also a stamp set with big and bold sentiments and also one additional large flower that you can complement your patterned paper with. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to turn this sheet of paper into this colorful background. And this is easily achievable and highly customizable and can be made into any color background you like. I'm going to start by adding color to the flowers through the solid layer stencil. I'm taping this in place and going to use an ink blending tool to add my color. I wanted to mention the circle foams I'm using today. The one on the right, purple, is a Spellbinder's Circle Replacement Foam for their Tool-in-One. The one on the left, the yellow, is Ranger Mini Round Ink Blending Foam. They both fit the Ranger Ink Blending Tool, although the Spellbinder's foam is a little bit too big, but it still fits the tool nicely. I personally like to use the one by Spellbinders better because it picks up and holds a lot more ink and lets me transfer the ink onto the paper much easier, and also my hand doesn't get as tired from all the ink blending. I'm going to use Velvet Orchid ink color from Simon to do my ink blending. I am bringing color to my images from the outside in a sweeping motion. This way, I'm able to keep the centers of the flowers a bit lighter and the edges darker. I'm using a very light hand and adding a little bit of ink as I don't want my flowers to be too vibrant. But you can add as much or as little ink as you like. You can also use whatever color you like best. I'm going for purple, teal, and yellow color combo today. Next, I'm going to remove the stencil and will attach the detail stencil onto my paper to add details to my flowers. I'm using a slightly darker ink color, Wisteria, and again going to blend it through the stencil to add details to my flowers. This time I'm adding more ink. I want the centers to be much more saturated with color. I will be covering flower centers with glimmer paste and it will mute a lot of that color. So to make sure at least some shows through, I need to add a lot to my background. You'll notice that the stencil is smaller than my paper, and I'm adding ink around the edges of my paper. You can tape it off to keep the edges clean, but I'm not worried about this as I will be trimming my paper down when I go to adhere my background onto the card. Now I'm going to go back to my first stencil and will apply clear embossing ink to be able to add embossing powder and do emboss resist technique here. I'm offsetting my stencil just a little bit to have a bit of white showing through. I have a blank ink foam and I'm going to pick up Simon's embossing ink and will add a heavy layer onto my ink blended flowers through the stencil. I'm simply tapping the ink onto the paper. I'm not even blending. I'm simply picking it up and transferring it onto the paper. I'm going to remove the stencil and will add Hero Art's Sparkle Embossing Powder. You can use just plain clear embossing powder, but I wanted my flowers to have sparkle to them, so I picked this particular powder from Hero Arts. I'm going to use my heat tool and will melt the powder. This does mute the color of my flowers just a little bit, so if you want to have really vibrant flowers in your background, you'll need to pick a more vibrant ink color or do heavier ink blending in step 1. Now that the embossing powder is melted, it now protects the flowers. In other words, I can add ink onto my paper and my flowers will maintain their color. I'm going to use Duckling and Malibu inks to add a little bit of yellow and teal onto my background. I'm also going to mix the two to create hints of green here. Again, you can choose whatever other colors you like to add color to a paper. There are a lot of possibilities. I'm going to trim my paper to 4 by 5¼ inches and will adhere it onto a piece of cardstock to make it sturdy. This pattern paper is rather thin, so it warped slightly from all that moisture and heat that we added. I'm going to foam mount it onto an A2 top folding card base made out of Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock, and once that is done, I can add one final layer to my flowers. I'm going to use Glimmer Paste from Tonic Studios. This is Moonstone, and will apply the paste through the detailed stencil to add some dimension and glitter to my background. This powder will dry mostly white with iridescent glitter inside, but the dark purple ink blending will still be slightly visible through the paste. You'll need to set this background aside to let it dry, and also be sure to wash your stencil to be able to use it over and over again. Here's a closer look at my background. I love all of that shimmer and shine that I was able to create using embossing powder and glimmer paste. I'm going to add a simple Always Here For You sentiment, heat embossed in white embossing powder onto black cardstock. This sentiment comes from You Are Here stamp set from Concord and 9th, and I'm just going to foam mount the strip onto my background. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the little gray dots on my pattern paper with Nuvo Crystal Drops in Gloss White. I don't want to have as much gray on my background. I'd rather have some white detail. So I'm going to cover every single dot using crystal drops, and I'm also creating a few additional dots here and there to balance things out. So this finishes this video and my today's project. While it might seem like I did a lot of things to customize my pattern paper, it really didn't take that long, and I had lots of fun along the way. You can by all means simplify this background by skipping a step or two, or you can make it even more complex by adding some additional detail. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I was able to inspire you to create. Be sure to give this idea a try and do tag us on social media so we can take a peek at your projects. You can find the list of supplies I used for this project down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye!